Second hour of the run home with Joel and the Scope today. The great man in studio. No, Brian Fletcher. He doesn't do the Fridays. So Justin Horro stumps up. All thanks to Hyundai, the all-new Hyundai Kona. Imagined to be bold. At Anytime Fitness, no matter who you are, you're welcome at any time. Now, this bloke here, very, very generous with his time. So good for the state of New South Wales. And I'm pleased to say the New South Wales Blues coach, Brad Fittler, joins the run home with Joel and Fletch. G'day, Freddie.
Sugar.
How
Justin,
are we, mate?
how are you, mate?
Hey, Freddie. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. I haven't spoke to you for a long time. You well?
Mate, good. So I was coming through the 20s, obviously, Fred, in your last season. I remember, I haven't told you
Freddie
this yet. No. Freddie was still playing 2004 when I was playing SG ball in 20s there.
Yep.
And I actually did some work on your house in eastern suburbs. Trying to get some extra coin outside life outside of footy, mate. So me, Sean Foley, Troy Savage, a couple of younger boys that sort of were coming through the grades at the time. So I don't think I've seen you since then, mate. So it's good to chat to you.
I reckon I used to get a lot of young fellas working, and you could tell how good of footballers they were by how hard they worked. I remember there was a couple of blokes there, they were just dead set bloods. Every time you turn your back, they'd just get their phones, they'd be on their phones, and, oh, mate, it was hilarious.
Oh, I guess that sort of sums me up, mate. Very inconsistent, just like my work
Well,
your
Freddie,
house.
I heard you in another media somewhere talking about the fact you had tradies there this week. Maybe they were patching up your bad work.
Yeah, that'll be it, mate. Yeah, there's still some work to be done on what we'll getting after, that's for sure.
Well, there's work to be done still, State of Origin. We were that close when you look at things in retrospect. That game one, we're so close to being in a decider. Hasn't played out that way. Some big changes, Freddie. How's the week been leading up to game three?
No, it's been exciting. Obviously, from game one, there's been a lot of change, a lot through injury. I think there was an opportunity there to sort of maybe blood a few younger players, and then also I thought, reward a few players as well. So I think, coming into this team, obviously not as scarred as the last group. I think purely because just, a lot of fresh faces through all different reasons, but they trained really well today, mate. There's some real mature heads amongst them. Obviously our halfback, 5'8" and fullback are, all in their 30s. So, we need to lean on that at different parts, but we also need them to be, give us that sort of, what do you call it? Be the level head, but also be the ones that are bringing the energy as well.
Freddie, some of the players I obviously get more excited about, and I know that they're not part of your 17. You've got Scott Drinkwater, Spencer Leniu as your 18th and 19th, mate. How long has Drinky been on your radar for? I know he's wearing the 18th jersey. How's he been in camp? And just talking about his last 18 months in particular, even though he's sort of come through the Melbourne system, his last 18 months has been outstanding.
Yeah, you know what? I've never really met him for longer than just doing an interview. And, that's the real beauty of, we used to do a lot of pathways camps and emerging camps. And you'd meet all these blokes and you'd sort of work out what they're about, and then you'd go and watch them play. But I don't really know Scott Drinkwater. So, he's been great to have a chat with. His dad actually played for Penrith. So he was born out of Penrith, and, he went up to the Central Coast when he was very young, 2 or 3. And spent all his life there, really, before obviously jetting off and going playing for the different clubs. So really enjoyed, talking to him. He's got a couple of brothers who are really involved in footy. Josh is still overseas playing in the English competition. So, and he loves his footy. He's one of those real footy heads. So it's funny these days, you get blokes who, barely watch another game of footy, but then you got someone who like him who loves it. And, I was just watching him today. He was in the background. He sort of come in with a bit of a quad strain, so we're sort of careful what we're doing with him. But in all his spare time, he was over with Joey, and they'll just sort of using a goalpost as a defender, and they'll just chatting and passing, and I just thought, what he's going to walk away and go, he's going to learn something out of that, and that alone would have made his time worthwhile being here. So, and Spencer on the other hand, he's you sort of send him into the team as a Queenslander, and they just bash him, and he seems to love it. He seems to smile and get up, and he's a bit of blood trickling out of the nose, and he seems to make him want to go harder.
Freddie, I think in the most the public and the media for that matter, I don't think they fully appreciate and understand the minds that go to work here, the data that's available. And to give you an example, Bradman Best was one of the ones that was most creating controversy. And take names like Will Penasini was thrown out. Now, Will Penasini, Scope, he's going to be a very good player, and he is a very good player, but most people watch it with the lens of attack. Last year, and this is not to belittle or, to put down Will Penasini, but he was, amongst the most try causes in the competition. So people are throwing at Freddie and co. Will Penasini. Bradman Best was a selection, and myself, I go, Bradman Best? I didn't see that coming. So immediately you start to think, okay, well, let's look into this a little bit further. So I looked into this. The left side for Newcastle, only Penrith had conceded fewer tries on the left side all year.
Oh, wow.
So then I went into it further. I looked at all the videotape of the tries, but I could not find a try led in by Bradman Best. We all know his attacking prowess. And clearly Isaac Tungo, I imagine Freddie, not much between him and Bradman Best based on his numbers. But for me, they were the two clear ones. Matty Burton, of course, as well. But I do think, Freddie, that people do underestimate how much data, how much information, how much input science goes behind these selections. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We use the sports scientists from Penrith. So they've been in the last 3 grand finals, and the people they bring into their club all do very well, from a point of view of they obviously do their homework. I think it's been comical. This year and last year, the selection has been comical. And, we pick different players for different reasons. And sometimes you're hoping and you're giving someone an opportunity and it doesn't always work out. Then other times it feels good when you say their name. And Bradman Best to me was one of them. I've coached him as a kid and watched him come through. Saw him at different stages throughout his career. He was, he was nearly selected a few times in the past. Whatever happens in his game and whatever he does, he has some things that a lot of those other players don't have. He has the ability to, he's fast, he's very powerful. So, hopefully what you do is we get to see that and maybe, he covers the deficiencies. And like you said, they're not as glaring as people want to make out, or they find it a very strange selection. I never thought it strange when we brought up his name. So it's just made that's been the thing. That's been the thing with the Sydney media this year and last year, I suppose. But it is what it is, mate. I feel for the players. I feel like for someone playing their first game for New South Wales, and since 1980 there's been 309 players that have played for New South Wales. And you get sort of crummy journalism, just want to sort of, break down and sort of maybe destroy the image that they thought what it would be like or how they would be celebrated when they made their debut. So I think that's a bit, I get a bit sad on that, but the rest of it, mate, I'm ignorant to what their opinions.
As I said, Scopey, I just want to challenge the listener, and I haven't been through every game for Bradman Best this year, but I reckon I've been through 2/3, and I looked firstly at the big gun teams. I couldn't find one single try attributed
Very interesting.
to Bradman Best, and we know he's got the attack. And the other things are, Katoni Staggs, yes, a contender, but Stephen Crichton's preferred side is right-hand side. Katoni's right-hand side. Matty Burton, yes, has played centre, but he hasn't for a long time playing in the halves.
Yep.
So for me, on that sort of, being logical, it was Tungo or Bradman Best with a split hair between them. So let's just get behind Bradman Best.
Yeah, I guess the hardest thing, obviously. Sorry, Freddie, go ahead, mate.
I think Tungo, watching him obviously in the last game against Melbourne, he could be one of those players, and I know everyone, it's quite common that the knowledge that he came through as a back rower, like he can become so valuable to a representative team. Obviously playing in grand finals, winning grand finals in the centres, and then going on being a back rower. You look what Kurt Cable did with his career, since playing at Penrith and then going to play for Queensland. You can really sort of, you become so much more valuable if you can do, both of those positions with quality.
Yeah, for sure. I think the versatility they got out of Penrith has really served all those players well, Freddie. Speaking of versatility, mate, number 17 coming off the bench, ex-teammate of mine. I've seen you speak glowingly about him this week, Clint Gutherson. I remember when he first came into training in 2013. He was skin and bones, and I remember just thinking, this guy just must have a go, mate. Without giving too much away, with Guffo in the 17 jersey, you obviously got plans for him coming off the bench and covering multiple positions, but how's he been back in camp, mate? I know he was represented for you again a couple of years ago. How's he been?
Well, to be fair, I haven't got a plan. When you're picking sort of that, especially that last position, we had two hookers, and you go, well, you know what, we've actually given our luck in the first two games from a point of view of some of our injuries. They've been in the outside backs, and nearly most games have had an injury in the outside back, so it's quite common these days. So, Gutho covers everywhere from 5'8" to fullback. But there's no plan. But what I do love, I just love what he's about. He's just full of energy. I mean, whether you're having breakfast, whether you're doing fitness drills or playing in a game or whatever it is, he's always contributing. He's good fun to have around, and watch what he does for Parramatta every week.
Yeah,
every single week. He's just wholehearted. So I love rewarding players like that. Yeah,
I've had a bit too much energy around the breakfast buffet, unfortunately. Freddie, Keon Kalamatangi, this kid, I've just got a gut feel about this kid. He's just going to eat this up for breakfast. He's going to love this environment. What have you seen from him throughout the camp, and have you got the same vibe?
Yeah, well, I've enjoyed watching him play this year because they've challenged him. He played a lot in the middle, which sort of makes you work pretty hard. Watched him in some games where they've done really well. South Sydney have been one of those teams where you can watch them last week, and when their defence is on, they look unbeatable. And then the week before, when they're playing the Cowboys, they look very vulnerable. So, I've seen him at his best and his worst, and they're pretty close. They're not that far away. He's taken on some of the bigger front rowers, and he's very confrontational. And then he also has the ability to be really, guile, and he can run beautiful lines. He's got a nice offload and some different parts of his game. So, once again, mate, this is sort of one of those things where it's up to him. He could become the back row for the next, 5 or 6 years, or it might work out to be too hard, and we'll see what happens. But I feel like when I watch him, and I've watched him over the last couple of years, I feel like he's ready to go.
Freddie, as you mentioned, very, very few players have worn the sky blue, and therefore good players are going to miss out. Who's been the unluckiest, would you say, in this campaign? Dylan Edwards, who can't do any more, but, you've got the captain in front of him. You've got somebody like a Nico Hines, who a Dalian medal winner, which doesn't tell the whole story, but, is it Nico Hines? Is it maybe who other player could be so unlucky? Is it a Katoni Staggs? Who's the most unlucky player in this campaign, would you say, Freddie?
Well, I think you named the main ones. And the Falconvols have had some injuries. I think obviously Nico, I really enjoyed giving Nico. Nico will earn it. Don't worry about that. And, the way he walked from the first game, and, he took a lot of responsibility for what happened, which wasn't his fault. Our team relaxed. With 5 minutes to go, they're down to 12 players. We relaxed. And ended up being the result that they scored a try at the death. So that was a bit disappointing. But, obviously Nico, and just, I think it was between him and Mitchell Moses. And, last time Nathan went down, I picked Mitchell Moses, and I've been happy every time he's played. So I sort of went back on something I was familiar with. Nico's obviously not far around the corner what he's doing for Cronulla. And then, like you said, who was the other one?
Dylan Edwards.
Like, he's so wholehearted, and that's one of the real things that I think we've sort of taken our eye off the ball a little bit from the point of view of just to those big moments of the games. We haven't really saved many tries this series. That's a bit disappointing. So he's someone who puts his body on the line. Every minute of the game. That is his trademark. So them two alone are. Well, it says you've got good depth too. So, if something happens to the fullback or something, happens in the halves again, you've got some players who are, the key part of it is they're wholehearted. They love the game, and they just, put everything into every performance.
Speaking of big moments, Freddie, 6 and 7, Cody Walker comes in. Mitchell Moses, obviously, like you said, at 7. Both very ball dominant at club level. A player that's missed out is Jerome, who I think one of his best attributes is playing second fiddle to Nathan, and obviously doing that slightly with Mitch in game 2. How are those two been connecting at training so far? I know Mitch plays predominantly right and Cody plays left at club level. How have they been linking up at training so far?
Yeah, well, we haven't been put under pressure yet, so we actually got a train against the under-19s on Sunday, which will be good. There'll be a little bit more pressure. They sort of do some lefts on rights, and they're very good at what they do. Watching Cody in and amongst traffic, finding the right selection of passes, I've got to say, pretty impressive. And then, Mitchell has a different part to his game from a point of view of, getting you out of trouble and using his speed. And so, it's really up to them how they complement each other. It feels like it's a perfect complement. They should complement each other perfectly because they nearly get to do exactly what each other do in their club team. So it's just a matter of really, the dummy half and the people around them making the right decisions, getting the ball to them at the right time. If we get enough quick play of the balls, it'd be handy. So, a lot's got to go right, but I think they play the sort of game for their club, which actually makes it, they could complement each other perfectly.
Yeah, I think with the case of Cody, I love that selection. Him for try assists the last 4 years, we need points, right? And him for try assists, and don't forget, he was within a whisker of being a Clive Churchill medalist on the biggest stage. So we know that he can handle that. I think Cody Walker will unlock the captain of New South Wales being James Tedesco. That's one thing where we didn't see a lot of the connection of pass between Luai and Tedesco, both very ferocious runners of the ball. I think that Cody will be absolutely perfect for James Tedesco. Now, Freddie, in life, whatever vocation we're in, if it doesn't go our way, we take away learnings. Is there something from this series where you go, yeah, you know what, if we reset the game one, I would have done this differently? Is there anything that you would think about for that?
I don't know, mate. I think the way the game ended game one, I need to take some learnings out of that. I think, that's the most important part. I think Savage, there was a few injuries and we had plenty of bad luck going on in game 2, although a couple of their early tries were quite poor decisions. But we were never there to take the luck either. Queensland were there to take the luck. So I'm not sort of naive to the fact that at the end of the day, they were the better team on the night. But yeah, the first game opened my eyes to a few things. They'll just need to make sure that going forward, that everyone's aware of, and just making sure. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky to say. Well, I won't be saying it publicly, but it's tricky to, to get out in words. But it's something I know deep down in my heart. Things that I need to make sure that the players understand, and that doesn't, that sort of performance doesn't happen again.
Freddie, mate, we appreciate your time here, and you have given us plenty as well. And I'm not just saying this, Scope, because he's on the program, but I've said I do generally believe this bloke we could lock up for 10 years. I don't know, and Freddie would know this himself. There'll be people who say, in this climate at the moment, we're down 2-0, that he's not the right person for the job. I do genuinely believe, Freddie, you are the best person for the state, and I hope you can go out blazing with a big win for 2023 and come back next year for 2024 to take on Billy and the Maroons again next year. Appreciate your time on the run home with Joel and Fletch.
Thanks, mate. Go on you, Justin.
Cheers,
there
Freddie.
he is, Brad Fittler. Mate, I'll tell you now, Scopey, what he gives, it's a game of rugby league. It's only a game of rugby league, but what he gives off the field, I just know he's the right person, and I'll get heavily criticised for saying this, but I think for what he brings to the game, him and Billy Slater both, for that matter, very, very good for what Origin is doing. 1300 01 1170, the run home with Joel and Fletch.